Hello everybody! Today we're doing review of Sennheiser Momentum over-ear, which is not really over-ear but rather on-ear headphones. The way in which this review will be structured is as follows. Firstly, we'll be talking about the build quality. Secondly, we'll be talking about the comfortability. Thirdly, we'll be talking about the sound quality. Then fourth up is the isolation test, which basically shows you how well they isolate against ambient noise. Fifth, we're going to be taking a look at the leaks of the device. Sixth up, we're going to be looking at some measurements of the headphones. And lastly, point 7 is the conclusion and summary. So first up is the build quality, and as you can see, they look quite nice. Also, they come in a wide variety of colors, so you'll be able to find something that suits your taste and preferences. Notice that it has a detachable cable, which brings me on to another thing, which is the cable. This is one of the two cables it comes with, and as you can see, it's terminated with one 3.5mm. On the other side, the part that goes into the headphones, you basically have one notch smaller. And unfortunately, this has a proprietary mechanism to lock in place, meaning that you have to go to Sennheiser if your cable breaks. Also, the cable seems a bit thin and looks like it could easily break. Furthermore, it's very microphonic, meaning that when this part rubs towards your clothes, you will basically hear it in the head cup. Now to the second one, which is the one with remote control as well as the flexible connector. I think it's a shame that the other cable don't have this flexible, neat connector. However, as you can see, I still have the protective plastic on, reason being that I really don't find a use for it as it doesn't work fully on Android. Basically, on Apple devices, volume up and down and pause it and play in the middle. However, on Android you only have play and pause working, not volume up and down. This connector is quite neat because it can bend to your heart's desire. I wish that the other cable came with this as well. As far as the microphone goes, the microphone works on Android, however I find it to be of poor quality. In addition to the great looking headphones, you also get a hard case, which is almost as hard as me. However, one big problem with this case is the fact that the material of which it's made is very akin to collecting dust, so you will have quite a bit of dust collection if you have this rolling around in your bag. Now, inside of this beautiful dust collecting case, you have a place for your headphones as well as a compartment for accessory. As you can see here, I have the adapter, which I have so many of that I don't really need anymore. However, nice to get one. Getting back to the headphones, we can see that there are exposed cables here and here. This makes me a tiny bit afraid because they could probably break, and these are not replaceable, so you have to send them in for service. Also, in my honest opinion, considering they cost around 300 United States of America dollars, they seem quite flimsy with these cables exposed. I'm really afraid they could break. Now let's talk about the comfortability of the Sennheiser Momentum. First, you have expandable earpads, which goes like this. And this is very good. However, it's quite a bit of a mess to get both of them at the same position. However, my biggest gripe with these is not the lack of clicks on the adjustment pads, but rather the fact that they are marketed as over-ear headphones, when the diameter of the pad is not large enough for a lot of people, me included, basically rendering them to be an on-ear rather than an over-ear headphone. What this means for you is the fact that if your ear doesn't fit inside of here, it will basically rest a little bit on the pad, and if you're wearing sunglasses, as these are portable and intended for use outdoors, The clamping force, which is pretty hard, will basically push this part inwards, and your ear will be pushed into the sunglasses, effectively making them hurt. Also, if you're an optimist like me and try to tuck your ear inside of here, the end result will be that the driver inside of here will be off axis, meaning not right in front of your ear canal, and the highs will suffer, giving you an earlier roll off. However, all in all, I do find them to be quite comfortable. They did start making my ears hurt after about 2 hours of continuous use, but nothing like the Beats by Dre Pro, which effectively was unwearable after only 15 minutes. Now what we're going to talk about is the sound quality. So now, and without further ado, let's talk about the sound quality of the Sennheiser Momentum over-ear headphones, which are really on-ear headphones. Shame on you for that, Sennheiser! Now, the sound quality of these are what could best be described as warm and inviting. What do I mean by warm and inviting? Well, it basically means that it has an emphasized bass, but not so much so that your average bass head would think that these are the greatest invention since women. So it has elevated bass, but not a lot, so I wouldn't call it a bass head headphone basically. Now, as far as the bass quality, the detail of the bass is not excellent, however it's good. The part of the bass that I perceive to be heaviest is the mid bass, and that's the part that goes basically slamming in your ears, and this makes them for a fun and joyful listen. The mids of the Momentum is, in comparison to the bass, a bit recessed, so whereas the bass is up here, the vocals are back here, basically giving you a sense of space. Now, in comparison to the highs or treble, the treble is really rolled off on these, and that costs them both resolution or detail, and also you don't get that eerie spaciousness where you can hear something like the hi-hat really dying out, so sort of like. So you don't get that with these. These are more bass and mid focused. Now, in the upper mid range they do have a bit of sparkle, but it's not excessive, so they don't get harsh. They do have a sense of sparkle, but it's not extreme. So between the bass and mid range, I would call them well balanced, and that's a term that's thrown around a lot. And when we look at the measurements, I'm going to explain what I think people mean when they say well balanced, and I'm also going to explain what I mean, which is basically what I think other people mean. Did I lose you now? As far as the soundstage goes, I don't think that they are excellent. I think they're pretty decent, but if you had a pair of open cans you would get better soundstage, that's undisputable. Okay guys, so in this segment of the video I am going to demonstrate / measure the isolation capabilities of the Sennheiser Momentum. And the way I am going to do that is by first I'm going to turn up some ambient noise, which has been recorded in a mall. Then when this plays back at approximately 60 decibels, dependent on the dynamic range of the clip, you will basically hear how it would sound, because I'm going to use the microphone, of which you can see here, to record the ambient noise playing through some speakers I've got over here. Then I'm going to put on the headphones and not play any music, and basically also record through this microphone and show you how well it isolates the ambient noise. So that will probably give you a basic idea of how capable these ones are at isolating noise. And I'm going to do fast A/B splitting testing so you can hear the difference in volume level. And I'm also going to put up a meter which will show you how many decibels they in fact isolate.
So there we have the Sennheiser Momentum isolation test. So with that last isolation test out of the way, now we're going to test for leaks, so sound leaks. So say you're on a bus and you're sitting there listening to some Lady Gaga and jamming up, and next to you is a really hot broad, and you obviously don't want her to know that you're listening to Gaga at full speed. So basically we're going to see if you get any sort of privacy with these headphones. And the way this test is performed is I'm going to place the headphones onto here. Then I am going to play some public domain music which I've downloaded from YouTube due to copyright issues. And then I am basically going to measure the output through the microphone, and I'm using the microphone I'm speaking in to record any potential leaks at various sound pressure levels. So that will give you an overview of how much they leak. Okay, so now let's look at the frequency response of the Sennheiser Momentum over-ears, which are really on-ear headphones. Come on Sennheiser, they're on-ear headphones. Okay, so notice here I've calibrated the measurement to 80 decibels. So if these headphones were completely flat, this red line would lie exactly on the blue line here, measuring them flat. So here you see the frequency. So here you have the bass, here you have the mid-range, here you have the treble. And as you can see here, this scale is the volume. So if you take at 20 Hertz here, 20 Hertz, a 20 Hertz tone plays at 85 decibels, even though I measured at 80. This means that these headphones are not flat but has an elevated bass. So let me have a look at this peak over here. If you notice, this peak is almost 90 decibels when I measured at or calibrated at 80. I think that this is probably where the mid bass punch resides, and by having these two dips over here together with this peak, it basically makes this peak stand more out, and you perceive it as more emphasized. Same goes with this. So basically this is what gives them that warm and lush and inviting sound. Now going over to the mid-range, we see that the mid-range rolls off, and when we go up to the treble here, it really rolls off. And if we look at this part right here, this is a bit emphasized, and I believe that this as well as this spike is what gives it a tiny bit of sparkle. Okay, so this peak and this peak gives it a tiny bit of sparkle. However, these dips here, and especially this one, is what makes it lack that airiness I was talking about. However, I did these measurements actually after doing the review, so now I am looking at the measurement and thinking about what I think about the sound, and really try to bind my perception to the measurement. So that's basically it. But the reason why I'm showing you these measurements are to explain what I think people mean when they say that something is balanced or well balanced, and at least this is what I mean. Now first, human hearing is optimized towards hearing human voices, and human voices mainly reside in the mid-range, which is from here to here. So as humans hear human voices better or are more sensitive to human voices, to make something sound flat doesn't mean that it has to measure flat. It basically means that you are less sensitive to bass, so you have to turn the bass up in order for it to come across as loud as this mid-range part down here. So by elevating the bass like this, you essentially make it so that it sounds balanced or more linear. Because if it was linear, you would maybe feel that it was a bit recessed, if that makes sense. So I think that when people say that something sounds well balanced, it's not that it measures flat, it's rather that it's optimized towards human hearing, which means you have to elevate the bass to make it sound flat. So that's basically the measurements, and I was quite taken back by seeing this huge bass boost because they're not bass head headphones. So I actually went ahead and measured my Sennheiser HD 600s to see if that had the same tendency, but it doesn't. So even though these measurements does not stand up to scientific standards, they pretty much tell you the correct story. So that is all I have to say about the matter, and now I'm going to go into the conclusion and summary. So to sum up, the bass elevated, especially in the mid bass, but not so much so that your average bass head would love them. The mids, they are recessed in comparison to the bass, but in comparison to the highs, they are forward, and this gives you a sense of space. However, the lack of highs gives them less eeriness, and it also gives you less detail retrieval. The bass quality is okay, but not great. The mid detail is better because they have a bit of sparkle in the upper mids, but not extreme, so they won't get harsh even when listening to contemporary music, which are very often a victim to something called the loudness war. And I'm going to put up a link so you'll understand what the loudness war is all about, because that is really hurting the quality of music more than anything else. Now, would I buy these knowing what I know now? Honestly, I think they're a bit on the expensive side for what they deliver sound quality wise, and I think, looks aside, at least if this is your type of look, you might be better off with something like these, which are the Audio-Technica HTH M50X. I recently got these, and these are probably the biggest surprise I've received to date. They have a richer sound than the Sennheiser Momentums in my opinion, and the bass extension is also better on them, the mid-bass impact is better, and basically I think they are a better pair of headphones, unfortunately. But if I were you, I would basically demo both pairs if I could and decide from there where you want to go. But of the two, the Audio-Technica wins in my book. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been my review of the Sennheiser Momentum, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.